The day of reckoning arrives for Coronation Street's evil Megan Walsh next week, as she appears in court accused of grooming teenager Will Driscoll. It's finally time for the villain to go before a jury, after months of manipulation and lies involving the vulnerable youngster. But we know that Megan is still dripping poison in Will's ear, and with a shock visitor arriving ahead of proceedings, is there any hope of her being found guilty? As the week begins, Maggie, Ben and Eva are blindsided when Megan's mum Janine walks into the pub. Janine is unexpectedly remorseful, apologizing for her daughter's horrific behavior and even offering help. The Driscoll clan waste no time in kicking her out, though Ben's left feeling even more conflicted. However, the plot thickens, as it's then revealed that Janine was spying on behalf of Megan. Back in her daughter's car, Janine admits that there was no sign of Will in the pub. Megan turns on the waterworks, telling her mum that Will took advantage of her and now she could end up behind bars. Janine believes every word of her daughter's sickening performance, so she later takes matters into her own hands and confronts poor Will in the street. Events in the run-up to the trial only add to Will's nerves, and the troubled teen has the weight of the world on his shoulders as his day in court arrives. As the trial begins, Megan's testimony causes a stir and deeply affects Ben before he takes the stand. What Megan says about Will feeling under pressure from Ben really sticks in his head, reveals Aaron McCusker, who plays Ben. He's not in a good place when it is his turn to give evidence. Ben does let emotions get the better of him and he loses his temper in court. He feels like he has let his son down and might have made things a whole lot worse. Will's pre-recorded statement later plays out in court, and his family are completely devastated as they listen to more details of his grooming ordeal. But when brave Will is questioned by the barrister, he is forced to come face to face with Megan, and his loved ones can only hope that he won't crumble under the pressure. There are twists and turns ahead in Megan's dramatic trial, and afterwards Will is left desperate to testify again and keen to tell the full truth about his trauma. He is thankfully given permission to give evidence once more, but with Megan still glaring at him from across the court, can Will find the courage to speak out against her? At the end of a tumultuous day, the Driscolls return home and tell worried Ollie that the jury is now deciding Megan's fate. As Will and his family face a nerve-wracking wait for a verdict, will they get justice, and will Megan go to prison? They feel they have done enough and Megan has been exposed for the sort of woman she really is, but it is all in the hands of the jury, adds Aaron. We all know Megan is a master manipulator, let's not forget she had the whole family fooled. The walls were finally closing in on Megan Walsh. For months, Weatherfield had watched in horror as the manipulative athletics coach twisted lives, destroyed families, and left a trail of devastation behind her. Now, after countless lies and shocking revelations, the day everyone had been waiting for had arrived. Megan was heading to trial. Recent spoilers confirm that key witness Will Driscoll is preparing to give evidence, while the community waits anxiously to discover whether justice will finally be served. As the trial approached, tension gripped every corner of Coronation Street. The courthouse buzzed with reporters, legal teams, and nervous family members. Outside, residents gathered in small groups, discussing the case that had dominated Weatherfield for months. Some believed Megan would somehow escape punishment yet again. Others were convinced her reign of manipulation was finally over. Inside a holding room, Megan appeared calm. Too calm. Dressed smartly and carrying the same confidence that had allowed her to deceive so many people, she sat quietly while her solicitor reviewed the day's proceedings. To anyone looking in, she appeared completely unfazed. But beneath the surface, cracks were beginning to show. For the first time since her crimes were exposed, Megan could no longer control the narrative. The prosecution's case had grown stronger with every passing week. What began as a series of accusations had evolved into a mountain of evidence. Witness statements, phone records, messages, and testimonies painted a disturbing picture of a woman who had abused her position of trust and manipulated vulnerable young people for her own benefit. Each testimony added another layer to the prosecution's case. Some spoke about broken trust. Others described emotional manipulation. Several detailed the long-lasting impact Megan's behavior had left on their lives. By the time Will's name was called, the atmosphere inside the courtroom had become almost unbearable. Every eye turned toward him. This was the testimony many believed could decide the entire case. Will took a deep breath before entering the witness box. His hands trembled slightly. But once he began speaking, his voice grew stronger. He described how Megan had gained his confidence. How she had exploited his vulnerabilities. How she had used her authority to blur boundaries and create confusion. Several people in the public gallery wiped away tears as he spoke. His testimony was emotional, honest, and devastating. For the first time all day, Megan's composure appeared to crack. She shifted uncomfortably in her seat. Her confident expression disappeared. The reality of the situation was becoming impossible to ignore. Outside the courthouse, news of Will's testimony spread rapidly. Residents followed updates obsessively. At Roy's Rolls, conversations revolved entirely around the trial. At the Rover's return, customers debated what verdict the jury might eventually reach. Nobody could remember a case that had divided the community quite so intensely. Meanwhile, another dramatic twist emerged. Members of Megan's own past began coming forward. Previous concerns that had once been dismissed suddenly took on new significance. Questions were raised about whether warning signs had been missed long before the scandal exploded into public view. For Megan, every new revelation made the situation worse. Her carefully constructed image was crumbling. The woman who had once commanded respect and admiration now found herself facing widespread condemnation. Yet despite the mounting pressure, Megan refused to admit responsibility. Even during private consultations with her legal team, she maintained her innocence. That stubborn refusal frustrated many of the people affected by her actions. Several victims hoped the trial would bring accountability. Instead, Megan appeared determined to fight until the very end. As the proceedings continued, the jury faced an increasingly difficult task. They needed to separate emotion from evidence. They needed to determine which accounts were credible. Most importantly, they needed to decide whether the prosecution had proven its case beyond reasonable doubt. Days passed. Witnesses came and went. Arguments intensified.